This is the KoperCrabb Podcast.
I am Cheney Crab.
I am Naveen Copperweiss.
If you would like to submit a question for the podcast that we will answer on the podcast, then you can email us at KoperCrabbPodcast@gmail.com. Or you can call in, leave a voicemail, and we'll play it on the podcast and hear your beautiful voice and answer your question at 615-314-5053. If you want to buy ENTHEOS merch, then go to www.entheosstore.com. So this week, Black Friday is on Friday. So, of course, as usual, you guys are getting first access to the sale. And you are getting a better sale than people who do not listen to the podcast and are not in our Discord. So for all Golden Lobsters, because we love you guys so much, we wanted to do something special for you, and we're giving you guys 40% off our entire merch store. Just use the code in all caps, Golden Lobster 2023 at checkout, and you'll get 40% off your entire order. We ship all of those orders, so any note that you leave, we will see. We try to answer them all.
We leave notes back.
We leave notes back. We leave notes back. So go to www.entheosstore.com. That's ENTHEOSSTORE.com to buy merch. And the same goes for the KoperCrabb merch store. It's www.KoperCrabb.bigcartel.com. And I will put a 40% off sale there as well. So yeah, that's the announcements for the week. I guess the other thing is, if you guys haven't already heard, we are playing Lorna Shore's Christmas shows. There are 3. Can you get the dates for me, Harrison? One is already sold out, the one in New Jersey.
It's the 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Yeah, one's in Worcester, one's in New Jersey, and the other is on Long Island in New York. So
my dad will be there, by the way.
Naveen's dad will be there.
Harrison will be there.
Harrison will be there. You can see all of your... Naveen and I will be there.
It's got all the KoperCrabb usual suspects.
All the usuals.
Yeah, me, Cheney. Not the cats.
The cats. Speaking of cats, I guess it's now that he's made his way onto the table.
Oh, there it is. Harrison, get him.
We have a new cat. I just realized
we have another freaking cat.
I just realized before this podcast that we've all of our cats have been kittens in the span of us doing the podcast. So here's our new kitten.
Let's show him off.
He doesn't have a name yet.
Yeah, maybe if you got a little name idea for him, put it in the comments. We were playing around with a couple names, but none of them have really stuck. He's found a golf ball somehow.
But yeah, we have a new cat.
Who has a golf ball?
Where did that even come from? The golf ball?
Your mom took it from that golf course.
Oh yeah, we went on a walk the other day. It's been an eventful 2 weeks for us.
Yes, very eventful.
That is why we didn't do a podcast last week, because we went on a trip to California to visit Naveen's family, and we saw an Earth Crisis show, which
was awesome.
We also saw Chase Frazier played a show, and we went and saw his synth band project.
That was in Santa Cruz. Why don't we just recap the trip?
Yeah, let's recap the trip.
We'll
do the whole thing, unlike the tour recap of the U.S. tour, which people are still asking us to go back and do.
Look at what the kitten's doing.
Yeah, I'm just kind of.
Yeah, he just likes being around us. Anyway, we'll just have to not pay attention to him.
Yeah, we'll still have to navigate that.
To do. For those of you who can't see, he is fiercely playing with a hair tie in front of our monitor on the table. Anyway, so we flew from here to California, went to Oakland, and then we drove down to Santa Cruz. And we stayed at my mom's. We stayed at the barn.
We did stay at the barn.
That was pretty legendary.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was for our old school listeners. How many episodes did we do in the barn?
I don't know, like the first 10 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that far. Because we started, I remember when Ant, who used to be in Fallujah, when we had him on an episode, I think that was at our house.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was pretty dang short after we started the podcast that we moved to the house.
Yeah, so like the first couple of episodes were shot in our barn.
Yeah, so we stayed in the barn, which was pretty nostalgic, although it was completely empty. Really nice. Great time.
Yeah, your mom has essentially made it into an Airbnb. It looks really good.
She should do that for, like, you know how you can rent the house on Jersey Shore?
Yeah.
She should do that with the barn. You can go
We're
stay
saying
there.
that about Jersey Shore because we've been watching a lot of Jersey Shore lately. Wait. Oh my god! I thought that was Harrison laughing, screeching, howling, laughing in the background.
No, the cat just walked onto the soundboard. He is cute, also, by the way, for people who can't see how cute he is.
He is cute.
Yeah, we stayed in the barn. We did the normal Santa Cruz stuff. You know, went downtown.
Which is, if you live in Santa Cruz, you have to do the Santa Cruz stuff. We went to Zachary's.
Yep.
We went to Cafe Cruz. We hit all the food spots. We went and saw Chase. We went to Vallarta. We went and saw Chase play at the Tannery, which I didn't even know that there was a venue at the Tannery, but it's kind of this apartment building type thing, and it was a cool little like venue that was about the size of this room. It was really small, but it was really cool. Really Chase had a fog machine in there, I guess, and smoked the whole room out.
Yeah, he fogged it up pretty good. And then we went up to the Bay Area. We went to Gilman Street, where we saw Earth Crisis.
Is it called Gilman Street? Or it's just called Gilman?
924 Gilman.
Oh, it's called 924 Gilman, or it's just called Gilman? It's called Gilman Street.
I don't know. I always call it Gilman Street. But
the name of the venue?
Yeah.
I think it's just Gilman, right?
I really don't know. But I have not been there in like well over 12 years.
Yeah, so how was that for you?
It was really cool. I saw a bunch of people that I haven't seen in a long time. I think Animosity was more a part of that scene, kind of like the hardcore adjacent scene.
Yeah.
And pretty much once I joined Animals and then started our band, at that point, things were kind of split differently. So
yeah, because now I feel like when bands come like bands don't really cross over into, I guess there are a few like death metal and hardcore crossovers, but generally it's kind of like an old school death metal type sound that crosses over into hardcore.
Yeah. Things are,
and back then it was like, more different genres of bands could play together or would.
Well, I think there was just not as many fans, so you kind of had to pool resources together.
True, that's true.
But yeah, it was definitely a trip. I saw a lot of people who used to go to shows back in the day. I fanboyed out on them to a degree that I thought was maybe embarrassing.
Oh my god. He just flicked water across the table at me. This is our most disruptive cat.
Look at we have a kitten here. He's drinking all the water out of my cup. And for some reason, he has this weird thing with cups or bowls. He'll like put his paw off to the side of it. He doesn't really understand how it works. Strange. But yeah, I fanboyed out on Earth Crisis to a degree of I thought maybe I might have blown it.
Yeah, it was the most like starry-eyed I've ever seen you around bands.
And, well, the thing is, I've been listening to them for a long time. They were one of the first heavier bands that I really got into. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking, I'm listening to heavy music for like 2 years, and then they were introduced to
Absolutely.
Me. So,
for me,
and I've never met them. I started messaging the guitar player on Instagram, and so we were kind of connected through there. And then so when I did see them at the show, he was like, "Hey, dude, you came, cool." And we were kind of talking, and I was like, "Bring it in, dude. I gotta, give me a hug." It was like, it was a little weird.
That's pretty awesome, though. I think because for me, as I get older, like I'm very rarely like that, like starstruck by someone. But I can think of a few bands that, Bleeding Through being one of them. I don't know them personally, but they're a band that kind of changed my life when I was a kid. They were one of the bands that helped me transition into way heavier music, out of kind of new metal and stuff. So it's cool to be able to do that every so often because it becomes more and more of a rarity. Yeah,
definitely. I think also one of the great parts about playing in a band and continuing down is you do get to meet the people that you looked up to.
Absolutely.
If you're lucky. You
Totally.
get to maybe play with them, tour with them. I've toured and played with a lot of bands that I'm a huge fan of.
100%. Yeah.
But it sort of moved away from the scene that they're in, which is like the more hardcore side.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really had the opportunity. I met the singer once randomly at a show, but just said hi. That was pretty much it. And then, so yeah, I was a little worried that I goofed it on the too much fanboy, but then I saw them after the show and they were happy to talk to me again. So I was, I felt like relieved that I didn't blow it.
Didn't blow it. No, you didn't.
No,
blow
I did not blow it.
It was awesome. They killed it.
Yeah, they were
They
really
were
awesome.
so sick.
Yeah.
They like the whole crowd was going crazy. It seemed like it was a lot of like older kids that grew up. What was the name of the EP that they?
It was the 30-year anniversary for Firestorm.
Yeah, I was never into Earth Crisis as a kid, but I know of them because of you, and I've heard them because of you, and they absolutely killed it.
Yeah, it was just a great night. Like I said, it was at a venue that I remember the last time I went there. It was right before we started dating, and it was Nails.
Oh, I wish
And
I could have seen that.
It was
show.
right when they just started.
Wow, that's legendary.
And my friend was like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna see the guy from Terror's like new band. They're called Nails." I'm like, "Okay, let's go check it out."
Yeah.
And that was the last time I'd been there. So, but yeah, I was really pleased with the amount of people that showed up for that show, and
It was sold out.
it was a super sick show.
Also, Gilman is somewhat of a legendary venue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Green Day started there. A bunch of bands of that era started
AFI.
there. AFI played a bunch of shows there. And Jerry Guzman has a ton of, I think we've talked about this before, but he has a video up of Green Day playing in like 93 or something at Gilman. So for me, I've never been there before, and it was cool visiting a venue that I've heard about for so long.
He wasn't there.
What?
Jerry Guzman was not there.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It's kind of weird. Surprising. But yes, that was great. And then we just hung out with my family for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, which was awesome.
And then came home.
And then we had one day in between hanging out with your family and my mom getting here. So we didn't really have time to do the podcast last week. It was a little bit of a thing.
And we got the rascal on the day.
We had this little rascal.
Yeah. So.
Who's calmed down now.
Yeah, let's let him take a little nap. Cuteness overload.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are trying to get things rolling around here again, right? We're getting ready to go play these shows. I'm excited about it.
Me too. Now that we're done tracking and everything, it's like I feel like I'm slacking on doing stuff, but we've gotten a lot of stuff done this year. So
I totally
feeling good
feel
about
like I haven't been doing anything.
Yeah.
And then the other day I was like, oh, we made a whole EP. Okay, tight. At least we have that going.
I am excited to go play shows next month. It should be a good time.
Yeah.
It's funny. I would say, when you're on tour and in the thick of it, after about 3 weeks, you kind of start getting ready to go home. But there's a point, maybe a month into being off tour, where I'm like, okay, I could stand to play a couple of shows. And when you just do 3 shows in a row or a week of shows in a row, it's a nice bounce back onto the road and get a taste for it. And then you're kind of ready to go back home and wait for the next time.
I think that'll be a great way to wrap up this year.
Totally.
We've had a pretty freaking cool year, if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating year, that's for sure.
Definitely.
But yeah. So someone wrote us a question this week and asked us not to share it on the podcast. But
so we're going to share it.
So we're going to read the entire thing word for word. But I just feel like they just didn't want us to read their entire, situation and what was going on. But I did want to talk about it because I think it's something important that we should talk about on the podcast. And so, long story short, this person is caught in between making a life decision. They're 29 years old and they have kind of been going from job to job, not really knowing what they want to achieve in life or do in life. And they're at kind of a crossroads now because they can go one way and work for a family member and essentially, be set through life. It's a good job, but it's not necessarily exactly what this person wants to be doing for the rest of their life. Or they can make the other decision of doing something they're actually interested in. This, I want to tell this part, this happens to be in the music industry, what they want to do. And it has to do with like building and working on guitars. And they are asking, and so basically like, this route isn't as much of a guaranteed thing. If they want to move to Nashville and follow down the luthier road, but it's not necessarily guaranteed that they can make a living out of it for the rest of their life. But this is somewhat of a dream that they want to follow. And basically what the person was asking is if we think they should take, the road of having a secure job and being good on that, or the road of following their dream. So we were talking about it the other night, and we still haven't responded to the person because Naveen and I wanted to formulate, I'm sure by the time this comes out we will have, but we wanted to formulate a good response to this because it is a huge life decision.
Yeah.
And basically, so do you want to start? Like, what's your opinion of?
Yeah. So the question is, do you follow your passion? Not so much of a guarantee as taking a job that you don't want to do as much to have security.
Yeah.
And I mean, my experience has been, always held down a job, and I'm sort of lucky because I was able to work for my dad, which was doing the draperies, the shades, all that stuff. It was like we installed window coverings, and that gave me a skill to go out on my own and create my own schedule. And that way I could go on tour and, afford to lose money or whatever, and then, or not get paid very much. Because let's face it, you're not going to get paid very much in the beginning. So I could do that, and then I could support myself with having a pretty dang good job, because not that many people do that sort of work, and skilled labor is scarce at the moment. So I'd always have a job, and I could probably, start picking that back up now if I needed to. But I will say, so I think that's a benefit. You can, in the beginning, have enough money to fund whatever you want to do. Like I could save up money to buy cameras, and that's how we have these cameras. That's how we have a lot of the gear that we have.
That's how we have so much. Yeah, absolutely.
I got my thing to a point where I was keeping my expenses kind of low, scheduling as much as I could, but working a lot, right? And then having to do the music thing on the side. I mean, you have to be really efficient with how you do your passionate stuff. So you don't have as much time as you do with your job. It's just going to take over your life in a way. And I think that definitely was always frustrating for me, and always, I always kind of dreaded it. I wasn't excited to go to work, I was excited like when I got paid, and it was cool to have that aspect that was more secure, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I liked everybody that I worked with and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I really didn't feel like I was putting in work for what I ultimately wanted to be doing. And so that was really frustrating for me. But I didn't have that many options. I didn't go to college. I got out of high school early, barely went to high school. So I had to do that as it was the best option for me to support my music career. And so we did do that I did that since I was 17 till 2 years ago. So almost 20 years. And then we saved up money. We moved out here. We started hustling more with the music stuff. And I did actually do a little bit of that work while I've been out here. A couple of jobs here and there. I kept in contact with some of the companies that I worked with. And as of this new year coming up, I told them that I don't want to work with them anymore. Because there's still that part of me that I feel like, even though it's such a fraction of my time now, I'm spending way more time on music and everything, I should be doing what I can to further my ultimate goal. And I don't regret it. You know, I don't, as a result, I'm not having as much money. You know, I don't have as much disposable income at all because we're just living on what we get through music and the band. And that isn't as much as when you go work a super professional job. You know, it's just not the same. Especially, you know, it could be down the road, but as of now, yeah, I'm making the sacrifice to have a little bit less, but I'm working towards my goal. And I think more often than not, people will regret not taking the chance. You know, you want to get to the end of your life. Are you going to regret not doing the safe thing? I mean, I don't think so.
No.
I've never been when I look back on my life, I don't regret spending all those years working. It's not really regret, but I'm kind of just like, if I could tell my younger self, I would be like, dude, just don't do that. Like, figure out something else, because there was so much time spent doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And I as I move more into doing what I want to do all the time, every day, doing music. And it's not to say that music or your passion is going to be a walk in the park. You know, like ultimately 70% of what I do, I don't really feel like doing. You know, what I like doing is sitting in a room and playing guitar and like playing drums sometimes. That's what I just would do if I could just do anything. But we're trying to make this into like a actual product, an actual business. So things don't really materialize unless you put in work.
I think that a lot of people discount that aspect of it. And once the going gets tough, because it will, when you're following your passion, it, like, anything is possible. Anything that's bad probably will happen. You know, you're going to maybe have $0 in your bank account at a certain time, and you're going to have to scramble and figure out how to pay your bills.
Or put a bill. Hey, you got to call them up, put a bill on hold, you know, that kind of thing. Like, you have to make sacrifices that you probably wouldn't have to make if you had a normal, steady job.
Right. But in exchange for the sacrifice of, if you have a different passion outside of working a normal, steady job, the sacrifice that you're making there is that you are in the position that Naveen was just talking about, where you feel like you're losing time, or you just become angry. Yeah. You're sacrificing your mood on a daily basis. You're sacrificing the not feeling regret at the end of your life. So there are, and nothing comes without a cost. So following your dream is going to come. I would say Naveen and I probably work way, I don't know how many more hours in a day. I don't know what's the quantifiable part of it, but we work so much more following this passion. And I don't want people to discount that you work constantly. When you run your own business, especially if that's the type of thing that you want to do, you have to work so much more than clocking in for a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
We don't get to leave
you don't get to say, hey, thanks for having me on the tour. I'll take my, whatever I made on the tour. I'll talk to you next time.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get that. We have to make sure there's another tour. We have to promote the band. We're making videos. We're doing like whatever. I mean, all day, for the most part, we're doing something that relates to the band or music related work.
Absolutely. And also when you're following your passion, you get told no a lot, and everyone around you is going to try and talk you out of what you're doing. Everyone.
100%.
Because a lot of the time when you're following what you want to do in life, other people don't quite see the how it's going to work out in the long run.
Yeah.
And people will always interject their opinions on what you're doing and tell you how to do things better, and people will tell you no. If you're a luthier building guitars, there are people who are going to hate your guitars. There's going to be like a Reddit discussion about how horrible the guitars that you build are.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to deal with all of that stuff, and you're facing you'll face all kinds of people telling you no, and you'll get your feelings hurt. And you also have to overcome all of that stuff on top of running a business. And, you have to figure out budgets. You have to start working on, you have to understand when is okay to hire people, how much money you can spend. There are a bunch of things that come with running your own business and following your dream that are, they're
not fun.
It's not always fun.
Yeah. So I think, but it is more satisfying than
100%
doing the opposite. Right. And I think when I look back on my life, I want to know that I spent my time fighting to do the thing that I feel like I don't know if there's a supposed to do, or like I feel like it's worthwhile. I don't really feel like spending 20 years of my life ensuring that people have shades on their windows is, for me, the most satisfying thing to do. I'm just doing that for money.
Yeah.
And I realize, like, I'm not looking down on that whatsoever. I probably will do that again, but I think I want to move more into a lower involvement in that type of work. And that's more just supplementary to keep me going to do what I want to do. So I would probably say that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be making enough money doing what you ultimately want to do. So figure out a way to cover your expenses and live a modest life while you spend the rest of your time building your other thing up, and just go from there. If the opportunity that you're getting is too much of a commitment and you won't have time to do what you want to do, then I probably wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't either. I would find something else to have something to supplement my income while I pursue what I want to do, until that becomes the way that I can make my main source of income, until that supports me. Yeah. And it's going to take a few years. It's a game of patience. I think it'll take a few years, and it'll like peaks and valleys. Absolutely.
There'll be times where you're like, sweet, I don't have to do any other gigs. I'm living off this thing. And then there might be a point in time where that's kind of silent and you have to go find something else to do. And that's part of being, I think, an artist.
Yeah, I do feel like with jobs, a lot of the time we spend, and money, there's a certain part of us that's trained to constantly be looking down the road. Am I going to be okay when I'm old? Will I have a 401k, this and that? I think that there is obviously a necessary amount of that we should be doing. You do have to pay attention to your future, but don't base your entire life on those things.
Yep.
It is important to be driven by something. Yep. I really think that it's what will keep you alive at the end, in your 80s and 90s, is still being passionate about something and really finding something that moves you and inspires you to be excited about the future and to be excited about the things that you're doing. And for many people, it's being an artist, and it's a bit harder of a road to take, but it is a road worth taking from two people who have taken that path. I've never been more frustrated in my life than when I had a full-time job and I couldn't dedicate all of my time to playing music. It was the worst time of my life.
So I think the pain of not having as much security is less of a pain than doing something that you really don't want to be doing and having the security.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what I kind of do. I usually compare my decisions to the lowest point. Like, what's the worst case scenario in both of them? And then take the worst case scenario, the better worst case scenario. Like I find myself being far less frustrated doing our band all the time and music stuff, even though it's not as secure as it was when I was working full time, but I was more frustrated when I was working full time. I'll take the we're running low on money this month over that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, any day.
So I hope that gives a little insight there.
Yeah, me too. Just, no regrets, right?
Yeah, but you could talk to someone else that's coming from people who are
We don't have kids. We
don't
don't have,
that's what I'm saying.
they're
We're both in it together. That's a whole nother thing.
that too.
I mean, you might have a spouse that's got like totally different goals than you. They might want different things than what you want. So fortunately for us, we're in it together and we have the same goal. So I recognize that not everybody has that, and your situation's going to change depending on what your commitments are. If you have kids or.
But
whatever.
I don't, and with that being said, I don't think that following your passion is unachievable with people depending on you. It's just going to determine how much time you can dedicate to this thing. And if you get yourself on a good schedule, you will just dedicate an hour toward that thing every single day, even a half an hour, any amount of time that you can put toward your future goal. You're moving in the right direction. It just takes a little longer. Things take time. You do have to have patience.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, as far as I can't comment on if you have kids or not because I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, that's a whole no experience there. We do have cats.
We have little cats, but they are pretty low maintenance. All right, so we've got one other question here. Question for Cheney. Obviously, a lot of... this is from Atrocious. Is that how you spell atrocious? No, it's with an A.
No, it's with them.
Obviously, a lot of your songs have pretty emotionally heavy lyrics. Is it ever difficult to perform them live, or do they just become words after enough times?
That is true. They do have an emotionally heavy topics. I do get emotional singing certain parts of songs. I will be honest, when I'm saying things really fast, it's harder. I don't get sometimes I'm just thinking about getting words out in a live environment because, faster phrased parts they take a lot of breath, and I will sometimes be thinking, oh God, here comes a part where I'm going to have to hold my breath for a really long time. But some parts I'll catch myself getting goosebumps and tearing up a little bit. There are songs that I've written that are about things that have impacted my life. We used to play this song. Well, we haven't played this song in a while, Suspended Animation from Dark Future live. And that song, every time I listened to that song the other day, and I got emotional listening to it because it is about my friend who died a few years ago. And every time that I listened to that, every time that we played that song, I would get emotional. So there was a point in time where we were playing Dark Future in its entirety live. And that song every single night had that effect on me. So yes, absolutely. When you're a lyricist, at least for me, I connect very deeply with the things that I say. And that is honestly why I've always gone the way of writing emotional lyrics. That's why my lyrics have never really been... I've never been very interested in writing, songs about aliens and science and all of those things. It's not really my thing because I don't connect to it on an emotional level. And writing lyrics for me has always been about getting my thoughts and emotions out on paper and being able to portray those thoughts and emotions, so other people can feel them as well and connect to the music in that way. So absolutely, I always emotionally connect with songs. And there are a lot of parts on the EP that we're putting out next year that I hear and I get goosebumps every time. The lyrics are really close to me. So yeah, always. How does that work with the drums, Naveen? What's the feeling, the emotional element behind playing drums?
I think drums are kind of, for me, just purely emotional. You kind of build up your technicality to a point where you can sort of just express yourself on the fly.
Yeah.
For me personally, I know some people like to write it all out and get real nerdy with it, but I'm more just expressive, just playing what I feel in the moment.
You are an expressive player. I think that's honestly a thing about our band is that when you see us live, every single part isn't exactly, especially with Naveen's parts, and there will be different tonalities of vocals I'll use sometimes. And Brian, I don't know if he ever really, sometimes he'll improv a few parts, but it's like you get a different thing live than on record, and that's emotion. Like that has to do with the emotion of it.
Yeah, slightly different. Not jam band status.
No, it's not jam band status, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of for me, as I've been writing more and more and getting older, I kind of try to write stuff that I feel like people could connect to, not just on the technical side.
100%.
And it's hard to explain what that is, but just making stuff that, it does have a vibe and carries some sort of emotion. And you're kind of like making this whole space for people to be drawn into. Yeah.
And I totally agree with you about there's this sweet spot where technicality and emotion meet each other. And it's really awesome to know all of the technical aspects about what you do. But it's all really just, and this is in a recorded sense, so this is kind of going away from the initial question, but it's really important to be able to use the techniques that you do know in order to write something that can translate to other people and that can portray the emotion that you're trying to get out there.
I mean, the techniques, they're kind of like a vocabulary. It's like another way to express yourself, but you don't need to make things unnecessarily complicated. Reading a book like that is not that many people are going to connect to a book that is technically written in a way that's hard to understand.
Yes.
So I think you do want to maybe utilize some words that are a little bit out of people's reach, but for the most part, make it understandable to keep people interested.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say is that people like 90% familiarity and 10% different. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's like people like stuff that's a lot like what they normally like and it's got a little flair to
twist.
it.
Yeah, that's the originality thing. And, it's not to say that you're sitting there trying to formulate, like, how can people relate to this? It's like, it's literally like you're letting it flow. And hopefully other people can get that feel as well.
Yeah. I feel like going back to the performance thing, that is a part of our band's performance. We're a pretty emotive live band.
Yeah, we try to be.
Just the way that I just think that naturally that's kind of how we play. Like it's just I don't know what it is, but that's our thing.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
So I think we're still trying to always get a good mix of all that stuff.
Totally. Because
some technicality, some vibes, some emotional parts.
For sure. But yeah, all right. I think we're going to have a short podcast this week because it is the holiday.
That's right. Okay. So wait, next week we won't do one, or we will?
No, next week we will do one.
Okay. Oh, it's on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Crazy. It's already here.
It's already here. We're close to the end of the year. And we hope all of you guys have a great week, whether you're celebrating or not. Just have a good one. We appreciate you guys so much.
Yep.
And love y'all very much.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Peace.